Quick question. How much stuff do you think is actually floating above your head right now, right this second, while you're sitting there watching this? Not clouds, not birds. I mean actual human-made objects orbiting the planet, all the time, in a giant invisible loop above your head. Most people guess a few hundred, maybe a couple thousand if they're feeling ambitious. The real number is going to surprise you, and honestly, it should worry you a little too. Hi, I'm Potato, and today we're talking about the actual traffic jam happening above Earth right now, one that's getting worse every single year, and one that could, in a worst-case scenario, trap humanity on our own planet. Stick with me because this one starts small and gets genuinely wild by the end. Let's start with the basics. Right now, orbiting Earth, there are more than 9,000 active satellites. That's the stuff doing useful jobs. GPS, weather forecasting, internet service, phone calls, television signals, scientific research, all of it depends on satellites quietly circling the planet, usually a few hundred kilometers up, moving at speeds so fast it's honestly hard to comprehend. A satellite in low Earth orbit typically travels at around 28,000 kilometers per hour. That's roughly 7.5 kilometers every single second. Faster than a speeding bullet doesn't even begin to describe it. But here's where the story gets messy. Active satellites are only a small fraction of what's actually up there. Layered in among those working satellites is an absolutely enormous amount of junk. We're talking about dead satellites that ran out of power years ago and just kept orbiting anyway. Spent rocket boosters that delivered their payload and then had nowhere to go, so they just stayed in orbit, drifting. Bits of paint that flaked off spacecraft, fragments from old collisions. Even tools that astronauts have literally dropped during spacewalks, still circling the planet at incredible speed, forever, or at least for a very long time. Right now, space agencies are tracking more than 30,000 pieces of debris large enough to actually monitor individually, meaning objects bigger than about 10 centimeters. But that's just the stuff we can see and track with radar and telescopes. When you include smaller fragments, down to just 1 millimeter in size, scientists estimate there are well over 100 million pieces of debris currently orbiting Earth. 100 million! Nearly all of it completely invisible from the ground, and almost all of it moving at orbital speed. Here's why that number actually matters, and why size doesn't mean what you think it means up there. On Earth, if a marble hit you, you'd probably be fine. Annoyed, maybe a little bruised, but fine. In orbit, that same marble-sized piece of debris is traveling at roughly 7 kilometers per second. At that speed, even a tiny paint fleck carries roughly the same destructive energy as a bowling ball thrown at highway speed. A piece of debris the size of a coin, moving at orbital velocity, can punch straight through the wall of a spacecraft like it's made of tissue paper. Size stops being the important number. Speed changes everything. This is exactly why space agencies constantly track this debris field and occasionally have to move the International Space Station out of the way entirely, firing its thrusters to dodge incoming junk, sometimes with only hours of warning. The astronauts inside aren't dodging asteroids from some distant part of the solar system. They're dodging leftover human garbage, orbiting at bullet speeds, some of it decades old. Now here's where things get genuinely alarming, and where a scientist named Donald Kessler comes into the picture. Back in 1978, Kessler proposed a chilling idea that's now known as Kessler Syndrome. The basic concept goes like this. Every time two objects collide in orbit, whether it's a dead satellite hitting another dead satellite, or a piece of debris slamming into an active spacecraft, that collision doesn't just destroy the two objects involved. It shatters them into hundreds, sometimes thousands, of smaller fragments, each one now traveling in its own new orbital path, still moving at that same bullet-like speed. Those new fragments then become brand new hazards, increasing the odds of yet more collisions, which create even more fragments, which increase the odds even further. It's a chain reaction, a cascade, each collision multiplying the debris field rather than shrinking it. In theory, if this cascade got bad enough in certain crowded orbital regions, it could eventually create a debris field so dense that launching new satellites, or even spacecraft carrying astronauts, would become extraordinarily dangerous, potentially for generations. Not because Earth's surface became uninhabitable, but because the space directly above it became too cluttered and too deadly to safely pass through. Let that sink in for a second. Kessler Syndrome describes a scenario where humanity's own leftover garbage could effectively wall us in, trapping future space missions, satellites, and exploration behind a shell of our own space litter, thousands of kilometers thick, all made from stuff we put up there ourselves and then simply left behind. We are not there yet. To be clear, most orbital regions still have plenty of open space, and space agencies around the world track debris constantly, actively maneuvering spacecraft to avoid the largest pieces. But certain crowded orbital altitudes, especially popular zones used heavily for communication satellites, are getting more congested every single year as more and more countries and private companies launch more and more satellites. Every rocket launch adds a little more traffic to an already busy highway that never clears out on its own. So what actually happens to old satellites eventually? Some are deliberately deorbited, meaning engineers guide them back down into Earth's atmosphere on purpose, where friction burns them up completely before they ever reach the ground. It's basically a controlled, intentional fall, engineered specifically to clean up after ourselves instead of just abandoning the hardware in orbit forever. Other, more ambitious cleanup missions are actively being developed right now, including robotic arms designed to grab defunct satellites, nets designed to snag tumbling debris, and even experimental harpoons meant to snag pieces of junk and drag them back down into the atmosphere to burn away safely. It's a genuinely strange kind of janitorial work, cleaning up an environment most of us will never personally see, using robots and nets and harpoons, hundreds of kilometers above our heads, just to keep the highway usable for the future. So the next time you look up at a clear night sky and think you're looking at peaceful, empty space, remember that above you, right now, there's an enormous, invisible traffic jam. Working satellites weaving carefully between dead ones, rocket boosters drifting aimlessly, millions of untracked fragments zipping along at bullet speed, all of it a permanent reminder that human beings, even from hundreds of kilometers away, still manage to leave their trash behind. Kind of wild that the same species clever enough to launch objects into orbit in the first place also somehow forgot to plan for cleaning any of it up, right? Space exploration, it turns out, comes with the exact same problem as everything else humans have ever built. Eventually, somebody has to deal with the mess. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If your brain enjoyed orbiting this topic with me, stick around, because the universe has plenty more strange surprises like this hiding closer to home than you'd expect. I'll see you in the next video.